All right, we are live on Facebook. We are the Podguyz podcast, bringing it to you live as we do every Monday, 10:15-ish Eastern Standard Time. Of course, I am Tony Kaz.
Kevin Neary here.
We also have the literal genius of the big board, Les Parquet. Now you may be watching here on Facebook Live. You may be wondering who is our Foursquare. He is the man, the myth, the legend, a personal hero, Darren Auck. Hi.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Now, if you don't know who Darren Auck is, you should learn. Write it down. Put it on paper. Color it in.
Come by for coffee.
Animations.
Yeah, that sounded like you're selling Darren like all the stuff you can do with the sham wow. You know, like if you don't know who Darren is, punch yourself in the face, jump off a bridge, take cyanide already because your life hasn't been worth it up until now.
Darren, of course, tell our visual watchers who you are, what you have done, where you've been. No, you've been in the comic industry for a long time, sir. Of course, give them a little breakdown of your biography.
Okay. Hi. Unfortunately, I'm old enough to be considered a comic book veteran. I've always grown up being a comic book, monster movie, pop culture, weird shit freak. And lucky enough that I was able to, I self-published some comics when I was in high school. I was all about like Marvel, DC, superheroes, and horror when I was younger. And went to the Kubert School. And from 80, I graduated in 83. That was great. You know, I kind of became part of the Kubert family. Kind of like that weird cousin that they can't get rid of and they just keep them in the basement. And
now for people out there that might not know the Kubert family, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Joe Kubert is one of the I would say he is one of the biggest comic book creators in the history of the business. He started
top 5 at least.
Yeah, he's on the Mount Rushmore, I would say. Of course, I'm a little jaded with that. But Joe, probably best known for his work at DC, one of the first guys that was savvy enough to keep the rights to his own character. He had a caveman character named Tor. Later on, he was like the war comic book guy, and he also did an amazing Tarzan run for DC. And in, I think it was like mid-late 70s, he and his wife Muriel decided to put together a school. And originally it started out, they bought a mansion in Dover, New Jersey. And if you look at old comics, you'll see these Joe Kubert drawn ads for this.
It just kind of feels like when two people that have been doing comic books their whole life are like, we'll buy a mansion for our young mutants. Like, okay, guys, you can't just be a comic book now.
Yeah. But, again, Joe, I got accepted. Very blue collar, down to earth kind of guy. Well, most cartoonists are, we tend to be, it's more like trade work than it is being an artiste.
Yeah, because it's probably a little bit because when you come out, like you have 2 coming out parties there, right? So you got to tell your parents, you got to say, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be and they're like, what is it? They're like, gay. They're like, great for you, gay. That's good for you. And it's like, no, comic book artists, like, oh, that's it. Well, it's time to fucking pack up out there. So there's probably a lot, and probably even still today, with kids that want to freehand, and their parents are like, look at a robot just drew my face, and I look amazing. So
we're gonna
kid,
get into that
unless
later.
you're better than
We'll
a
get into that
robot
later,
drawing
of
my
course.
face, then you probably are gonna have your job just snatched up or
Yeah.
self-automated to a degree. Now, so did your parents give you any flack about wanting to be a comic book illustrator, or did they encourage you? Or I mean, there's always an uphill battle whenever it comes to
sure.
what you want to do compared to what the parents are like. Well, have fun not eating, and you're like,
Right.
well, fuck me then, I guess, right? I guess I have to start.
Well, originally I was just going to be Batman, and they're like, nah, that you're not going to earn a living being Batman. So, but as far as being an artist, I knew I wanted to do comics.
I don't know, Darren, were you ever a wealthy playboy?
No, I wasn't.
You missed out.
You took my question, Tony. You took it. That was.
I think that's what my old man said. He goes, "What do you think? You're a wealthy playboy? Come here, you dope." But my mom she could draw. She was artistic, and now my dad was an iron worker, and he was a tough guy. He grew up on a farm in North Dakota. Fought in Korea. He was pretty much a no nonsense type of individual. But he never discouraged me. As a matter of fact, couple summers while I was at the Kubert School, I worked on one of his construction jobs, and it was tough work, but the money was really good. I was like, ooh, this would be some security. And then we were out there on the job, unfortunately, riding in with your old man who was like the site boss. You got there before everybody else. And I'll never forget, like one morning, it was just pouring rain. It was just mud, shit, horrible morning. And he looked at me and he said, "I want you to promise me you'll never get into this blank, blank, blank business." So, but even though he didn't really understand the medium or the movies, when I got the job at Marvel, that was something he could recognize. Like, oh, okay, you have a 9-to-5 job at this publisher. That
I like how your dad was in like two areas that have directions for their names, like North Dakota, South Korea. It's like good.
Yeah. And I was very lucky because I took a lot of shit from the kids because, guys, I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. And, these days, and I like to get on my old man soapbox and tell my former Kubert students, "You're so lucky. There's girls that like this stuff." And when I was a young man,
we had to have sex with each other. We didn't like it. We weren't gay. We were desperate.
But now if you're out somewhere and you say, "Oh, well, I'm a cartoonist, I'm a comic book artist," people go, "Oh, cool."
It's gained so much recognition over the years from pop culture being a big part of it. The Simpsons never going off air and always predicting the future. It's pretty easy to predict the future when you've just literally done every storyline you could possibly think of. Where they're it was the Simpsons the whole time. And you're like, dude, they fucking literally did every storyline possible. They've gone down every pathway. You can
they have 100,000 episodes of every possible storyline.
Yeah. So like it's like reading Nostradamus. Like, okay, there's a lot here that won't ever happen, but
there's one or two that will.
But
exactly, yeah.
But like you touched upon, you still run into people who are like, "But what do you do for a living?" Or "Oh, so you work in Sunday Funnies?" It's like, not quite.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
newspapers then, right? Newspapers. Fucking
That's a great publication where you'll get paid, sonny boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
my,
yeah, yeah.
My real job is assembling phone booths. There you go.
Yeah. And now
No,
business
Darren,
has
I'm
been
gonna
slow for
get
a
out-
couple of years, but we're still waiting.
I'm gonna get out
Yeah.
my soapbox for a minute, Darren, because when we had first met, was several years ago. Now, I was at a Comic-Con and I was trying to, you're doing a circuit. You're trying to talk to people. You're checking out artists. You're checking out their work. They did fantastic things, and you were one of the only content creators that actually came out and greeted people instead of like being, not to say even when you're in the comic book circuit, man, when you're in the you're at the cons, like there are a lot of people who are just buried right in their work.
Right.
And I get that's how you're trying to make money, but you're also trying to encourage young people to come to you as well. And you introduced yourself. You were like, "Hey, I'm Darren. How you doing? It's great to have you out here." And no matter how, not to say it's fake, because you're a very genuine person. Like, you're very nice. You're very like pleasant to talk to. And I've never, and even though you had no idea who I was, like even at those times that I've talked to you, you had no idea who I was. I think until like maybe 2 or 3 years ago when I talked to you on social media, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna eventually get you on this show, and we'll talk at the cons, and like I'll go out to Scranton Comic-Con for this year and last year, and then we talk there." But it was always a cool interaction.
Thank you.
I think you were the only one that actually walked around and like talked to people and introduced yourself, and you're more than the money that can be spent at the conventions.
Oh, thank you. Well, I don't get out. They don't let me out of the cage very often, and I get so lonely and desperate and touchy feely.
You just described like some kind of weird Epstein Island that should never exist. We keep the
Come here, boys and girls. I've got cartoons.
we keep the comic book artists on this island in these cages over here. It's like,
the island of lost scribblers, like don't let them out, But no, I appreciate that, because the conventions, even if they're hectic, it is selling. You got to be a salesperson. But for me, it's also, it's like a party. I get to see folks,
of course,
and you get to see folks you haven't seen in a while, and you do develop these relationships. That was, one of the things I would stress to young creators or students, like, you got to be your own salesperson,
massive.
And I got to be careful, because the funny book drill sergeant thing kicks in. Like, if I'm going through a convention and I see a young creator at his table just like on his phone, I got to fight the urge to like go up and like smack the phone out of his,
And not to say that when I went out to this recent year, of course, to Scranton Comic-Con in our backyard, I went with my children, and I think that's more important for the kids, instead of like the mainstream adult, because right now your 30, 40, 50-year-olds who are in this in this community now are in the epitome of what it was like to be in the comic book industry. So like, even in your biggest time, now a lot of these people are making big money, and they're investing, and they're spending money in the comic books. That's why you have all these not even to say like these slab comic books, the graded comic books, all these original arts, the list goes on and on as far as like a bunch of stuff that's been going on in the comic industry. Let's start from the very beginning. Okay.
I was born a poor black child.
I love that. The movie The Jerk. That's amazing. That's a great. That's one of my.
Wow.
It's the top 5. One of my top 5 favorite comedies right here. Darren, I have a particular set of imagery that I'm gonna bring up for you. Well, we don't have any high tech stuff on Zoom because the graphics and all that nice stuff. But this is. Tell me if this one's yours. I think I'm almost 1000% that it is. But the imagery in this whole scenario from Rocco's Modern Life right here, the comic strip right here. See that one?
Yeah, that was
So it's like a dentist scene. You have the tools lined up here, and it says, the caption says, "Remember, no pain, no gain." That's a little dental humor, and Rocco has got to be the most nervous kangaroo, and that's probably fit to his personality. And
yeah, he's kind of a wimpy everyman, and that might have even been a panel from the first issue where and that was great because like the dentist is like a sadist.
well, that's another cool thing too, because so many parents out there are trying to tell their kids, don't be afraid of the dentist. Here comes Darren saying, well,
but that
it's kind of reassuring the kids that your instinct to be afraid of sharp objects and a stranger you've never met is a good instinct to have. And you're going to want to lean into that in some areas, obviously not for medical reasons, but there's a lot to work with there.
Yeah, and if you have to go to the dentist and it's a dirty rodent, like in the Rocco comic, just get the hell out of there. This ain't no Ratatouille shit. Like you need to get out of there, man. But that was a lot. We also had like they gave him gas and he hallucinated. That was a pretty, with a license book like that. Of course, I had my Marvel editors.
It was an easier, now being that the comic was the way that it was an easier to follow. It was easier to follow as just like you jump in, you watch it. It's just more than Ren and Stimpy was, in my opinion. Because you can just jump into Rocco's Modern Life. The characters always portray the same character traits that they're always going to have. You have Heifer there. You got, a little turtle guy roaming around with the, wash your hands, turn the page sort of thing. And he was into comic books to that point.
No, I got to bring this up because Rocco's Modern Life was a little more risque for a while. So there was a small little trife where they tried to push the buttons, even in the animated series. But have you ever drawn something that you said was so risque that you still threw it out there and you're like, oh, maybe I'll try to throw this at them?
Well, you know what? My favorite, and I wish I had it here. My editor, Mike Lackey, we're like brothers. He said, you know what, Nickelodeon, or it might have been his idea, it might have been Nickelodeon's idea, they're the boss, like some puzzles or some mazes or something. And I'm like, I was never that big a fan of that stuff, but hey, that's what they want, that's what they'll get. So, of course, me being insane, I did this whole what we would do is usually just draw out. They would get a script from the writer, and I would do roughs or pencils to be approved by everybody, especially Nickelodeon. And I did this one, and I'm laughing because I'm like, there's no friggin' way anybody's gonna approve this. And what it was the maze was, I think it was Heifer, like the puffy snacks or something. And I got Heifer, all it sucks to have to describe a joke, but I don't have the page here. And he's on the couch.
It's all right. Sparky can draw it for you, by the way.
Yeah, Sparky, why don't you draw what he's saying, okay? And
do you have a Heifer pop that we can act this thing out? And so what it was is he's laying out on the couch, pigging out, and what it was past the puffy. And the maze was getting the puffy from his mouth to his asshole.
I've actually seen this one. His tail.
And it's like,
I've seen
of course
it.
I didn't draw the starfish or anything, but
You wonder why all these kids enjoy eating ass so much these days. You know, subliminal messages through cows and burgers and Rocco's Modern Life.
but it went through, and my good buddy Gary Fields inked it. If I remember right, might have been Matt Maley. Yeah, it went through, and I was like, holy. But a lot of times, and you know, the Marvel people, we had worked together. I usually knew how far I could push it. Nickelodeon, sometimes you never knew because there might be somebody new in charge. We once got a memo saying, why is Ren being so mean to Stimpy? You know,
well, there were many drowning scenes, you know, like where Chihuahua is strangling a cat
murder
and
in every
drowning.
scene.
And it's like, dear Ren and Stimpy, why the violence?
Yeah.
This is a talking.
And the one thing though with Ren and Stimpy, when they first brought me on, I mean, Kazala, a bunch of people were doing really good stuff on the comic way before I got into it. I was kind of hoping to do some of that really gross full color stuff that
the zoom in graphic stuff, right?
Like Bill Ray and those guys were doing. But now they weren't the comic book. They wanted that to be a little less crazy than the cartoon, you know. But I think we still had some fun with it.
I think you're catering more, and not necessarily that they were trying to cater to a more younger audience, but especially with the comic book community, like you're trying to cater more to children than you are like to the TV show, which was leading, ironically, to a larger like older market, which was weird.
And a lot of that, I think, was normally when you see something cartoony in the comic shop or on the stands. Back then, there actually was stands. The parents will go, oh, that's cartoony. I want to get that for my kids. So it's almost like you behave a little bit so you don't freak out mom and dad. We were at a party one night, one of my wife's dinner things for work. And
I like you say as in wives, as in multiple.
Oh shit! No, my wife's in construction, so just so you know, the party wasn't a bunch of creatives, and you know.
I thought this was a scenario of Dimension Mormons there for a second. Darren's a player, you know. He's like, man, I got a niche.
But talking, you know, you have that conversation like, what do you do for a living? I'm talking to this lady I just met, and who ended up becoming one of my wives. But she's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a cartoonist. And she's like, well, have you worked on anything I'd be familiar with? And of course, this is mid 90s, you know, and early 90s. I said, oh, well, right now I'm working on a comic book for Marvel. It's Ren and Stimpy. And when I said Ren and Stimpy, this woman looked at me like I had dropped my pants and dropped a deuce right there in the middle of the dining room floor. Like, she's like, ow, I know that cartoon. And that was, you know. Jesus. There's no coming back from that one.
Yeah,
man.
you just shot on the carpet and then rubbed your butt into it.
Yeah,
and then the dog slide.
You know, and it's the weirdest thing how people feel about cartoons and jokes. Like I was telling this joke, and it's not my joke, but it's an older one, right? Not that old, but it was why didn't Smokey the Bear ever have little cubs with his wife Betty the Bear? And then the person's supposed to say, I don't know. Why? Right? Now, it don't really takes them too long to say that. And then the punchline is, because every time Betty the Bear got a little hot between the legs, Smokey thought it was a forest fire and beat the crap out of her with the shovel. Kind of ruins the mood. Now, every time, Darren, every time I hit the punchline on that, right? And by the way, it's not my joke, but still, every time I hit the damn punchline on it, they say, well, why would Smokey do that? I thought he was a nice bear. I'm like, actually, he's a cartoon bear, but you know how those cartoon bears get when they have a couple of drinks. And they said, oh my God, I never realized he drank. It's like, he's not fucking real. Okay. You know, it's a cartoon bear. You know, these,
It's astrology. It's...
but Darren, you probably get that too, where, you know, people think you're illustrating these and they're like, why did you make him say that? It's like, fuck you, you know, because fuck you, because I wanted this conversation. That's why
just give him that look like, that's what the voices tell me to.
Yeah, right. Have you ever run into a fan though? I mean, it's just up the same alley. Have you ever run into a fan that they have kind of associated you and then said, hey, and then placed a negative blame aspect on anything that you've done before? Has that ever been an experience? And I'm trying to really widen out the variations so that way you can pick and choose, because I'm sure that it's happened.
Well, sure. Like back, you know, working in the art department at Marvel back when, let's say, the Clone Saga or some other things from the 90s that were, you know, like Heroes Reborn and Heroes Return, when the Image guys were pretty much doing a chunk of the books. And, you know, that people who don't necessarily know how these things work, and, you know, even at a show or something, oh, you work for Marvel? Like, what the fuck were you thinking doing this? I'm like, you know, and a little wackier though. For the most part, you know what? I'm a fan. I get weird about stuff, and if sometimes you run into very intense people at shows.
You know who the
cool.
one character is that Marvel brought in there just to mess with everybody, because the storyline never has to keep consistency, and it has all the characteristics of not just lazy writing, just whatever I want to be writing.
Ben, what is it?
Time. It is Doctor Strange, and you know it. The whole thing.
I'm a big fan of Doctor Strange.
Now, because you can't not be, because he's everything in every universe, and you know, if
he can
Mahler,
be whatever you want, whenever you want,
at any time. So there's the critic that I like to follow, and this guy is very specific. Mahler, right? His name is. I'll give Mahler a shout out. Shout out to Mahler. But he says that in the end of Doctor Strange 2, that Doctor Strange just turned out to be a simp, and they're known as. Yeah, because they said in all the multiverses he never hooks up, and it's like, really, the whole time, all the multiverses, Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Simp, but that's
Strange
the only
is the kind of guy that he's not gonna kiss and tell. Come on.
Well, it's almost like
I think the thing is that he was a paralyzed guy. And they don't want to push the envelope as far as trying to get sexually creative with someone who's partially paralyzed.
I mean,
and I don't think that they've ever done that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I know, like, Doctor Strange originally had the hand damage, but
They pushed this to a new notation where, you know, they're just like, hey, he can do this now too. It's like, when? By what rules is he allowed to do this now? And they're like, because whatever.
I don't even think he has to touch anybody to give him an orgasm.
No, he doesn't need to do anything. He just it's like
all he has to do is one of these.
Yeah.
Well, in the first movie, the movie version is different than the comic version. The comic version, very, very different. They didn't use every goddamn cheat code in the world, and they didn't make him look like Dr. House with some kind of superpower to him, basically, because there's no way. I feel bad for this guy who's speeding and then gets himself into a car accident. Then the doctor that saves his life, he's like, I would have done better. It's like, dude, fuck you. Why did I even save your life? What is wrong with his whole attitude? And like the casting, the visual casting is very good, but all dialogue coming out of Cumberbatch's mouth is just nothing but, and he, you know, no offense against the actor. The actor can't the actor can't go up to all the directors and be like, listen, I look like the guy that you painted here, but all of this right here is shit. You know, like he can't do that, obviously, but It's just
I don't know. I like the film. His origin story. I mean, he was arrogant. Going back to what was it, like a 6-8 page story with Ditko. But in a way, I see what you mean, because it was like there's arrogant, obnoxious, and then there's that road to redemption and becoming a better person. But
he's not a doctor anymore, though, after he can't practice medicine anymore. So they should just call him Strange, Mr. Strange. We're taking the
Mr.
doctor
Strange,
out.
yeah.
You're not, you traveled the multiverse.
Your
you
license
practiced
revoked.
medicine in years. His doctor means as much as what Dr. Phil is right now. It's like, I guess, dude, get in here too, Dr. Dre, while we're at it. You know?
the arrogant, strange dude, no longer a doctor.
Yeah.
Formerly the doctor.
Yeah. The doctor formerly known as.
Hi, my name is.
Hi,
my name is.
It's funny because kind of like trying to watch news and current events. I can't watch a lot of these reviewers because, like this guy you mentioned, I'm not familiar with him, but like right away we're getting into like the back screen, behind the scenes, like sex life and stuff. It's like, dude, you need to,
Yeah, he needs
man.
So of any reviewer, the only reason I would even give him a mention is because he was comparing the comic book to a degree with the play-by-play and how the movie was portrayed, and what really didn't grasp to consistency. And then with Doctor Strange too, it's just like, all right, guys, it's a 5-hour review. It's not like a 15-minute, like how the news is told anymore in 30 seconds clips, or
Right.
the election, like, well, the world's blowing up now, but on to the weather,
Now, Darren, do you have a favorite? And ever since the movies have not necessarily skipped a bunch of generations, because in the original particular movies, of course, they had the Avengers, they had Punisher, they had Captain America, they had Thor, they had Iron. Like even back in the what was that 70s?
Yeah.
Right in the 70s. They had the original.
Gordon, believe it or not.
Yeah. And then they resurrected throughout the years, much like the comic book industry.
Yeah.
And what have you done personally that you would think like transcended time? What's the one thing that you have done, and not necessarily even Ren and Stimpy or even Rocko's Modern Life. What's the one thing that stuck out in your mind that was so awesome to you that has transcended the hands of time?
Wow, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
Hands of time. Now we're talking. It has to transcend hands of time.
And that's just a personal feeling, something that's close to you.
No, it's a good question. Like, I'm proud of the stuff that really worked with the Ren and Stimpy comics. As being in the art department, being an art director, we did a lot of corrections. So much of that was like fixes and things that nobody necessarily knew. Later on, people get really savvy. Like they chase down cover sketches that I did for like Carlos Pacheco and stuff. I'm like, wow, you're really knowledgeable with this stuff, And for me,
I just looked up the 10 biggest Darren Auck comic covers on eBay right now.
right?
Is there anything that sticks out of your mind that you were like, oh man, I created this, I wish I would have done it for like, and not even that it was done on a blank cover, but you wish that it would have went to production?
There was I forget which issue of Rocco, but he goes to like see a hardcore band, and that was a lot of fun to draw, because back then we were going to see shows. 91 we went to see Gore and got in the pit. That was pretty trippy.
Yeah,
and
Gore put on great shows. Yeah, so
a lot of fun. And the original drawing for the cover was him in the mosh pit, and it got rejected because it was too violent. And I looked at it
Aw.
later. I'm like, yeah, I had a little too much fun with that one, Sometimes you were called upon to design characters or maybe tweak somebody's costume. There was a couple costumes. I would also pitch stories and revamps, like changing up villains and whatnot. Some of that stuff I would have liked to have seen actually go through the pipeline. It was kind of funny because when we were doing the 2099 books, and John Romita Sr. was still in the offices. Of course, he was my boss. And, of course, you go to John for character designs. And I believe the editor, Joey Cavalieri, came to him. They needed a Venom 2099, And John, John Sr., I don't think he was feeling it, or he just, he's like, why don't you do this? Oh, one of those moments would be like doing cover sketches for John Romita to draw. That was like, boss, are you just messing with me? I'm not worthy to, tell you how to draw a cover. And he'd be like,
yeah.
He go, no, you
Even an idea.
Yeah,
Something
and
to
and I
pop
would-
out there.
I'd do a sketch like I would for all the other freelancers. And he goes, this will make me not think about it. I'll just take your idea. I trust you, and I'll draw it. Because he could be very methodical and change his mind. He knew.
Yeah,
that
especially
way
when you
he-
think it might be a trap, like when he's either asking you to do that, to be like, "This is crap." What?
Get the hell out.
Why did so
But, so I ended up doing some designs and some logo designs for Venom 2099. How's that for like 15 seconds of fame? If he shows up in a movie, maybe they'll send me a free pass for like McDonald's or something,
Yeah, McDonald's gives out passes to unhealthy people anymore. They're like, here you go, once a year, then you're done. I mean that.
Oh,
that'd be,
but sometimes it was just like a project that everybody kind of had to jump in on. Back then, it wasn't unusual to have like, let's say, somebody got sick or some kind of glitch. I mean, it is all about deadlines. That's what I tell everybody who's thinking about doing this for a living.
Oh, that's procrastinator's dream right there, where you don't get shit done until it's like, we got an hour. It's like, whoa, But no,
Yeah,
but sometimes it's zero good ideas happen with it. So you got a week, you got 4 days and nothing.
Yeah.
And then day 5, you got nothing but arguing.
Right.
Because
Here I go,
it's been said before, and I'll, like if everybody's writing in the room and you get the production people coming in there, and I think every writer would just rather say, okay, executive producer, we're going to give you credit for writing this one, and we're going to give you credit for writing this one, just so that way they leave the process alone. Have you ever had any major trouble where that your experience and know-how was better, but was still blocked off by those producers?
Oh, sure. I mean, you would, as far as being an art director at Marvel, it was set up to where, and even John Romita played it this way, we were there to support the editors. We would, before they shut down the talent search part, we would go through portfolios coming in too and try to give people work or a start. But yeah, as far as like, sometimes you would pitch something or you wanted to fix something and they didn't, I tell people, like, you got to understand, even though this is comic books and it's heroes doing heroic things, there's still ego. I bumped heads as gently as I could. I mean, back then I had a hell of a lot more of a temper, but sometimes you would, an editor would want it to be done a particular way. Maybe they wanted you to fix something a particular way. And yeah, sometimes it got a little loud, but for the most part, we could hash it out like that, you know. I mean, I grew up in a construction family, and the way they hash stuff out compared to the way you hash stuff out in publishing, for the most part, it might get a little loud.
Yeah, a lot of you can't really call it full backstabbing. A lot of thumbtack stabbing, though, or you're just like, is that what was supposed to upset me? Oh,
Just
yeah.
back poking,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just annoying. Yeah. But I tell you, this sounds like something that you say in an interview, but especially Marvel, dealing with the more corporate ownership, especially when things were changing, it seemed like every other week. That was stressful. That was challenging. And we went through some tough times with the business of it. But editors, production people, the people in the bullpen. I started out as a staff letterer, for the most part, it was all good, man. We had a good time. We had our softball teams, and it was a little more.
Now, hold on there. Hold on. You ain't getting away with that one. Softball team. Hold the phone.
Yeah,
Wait a
the
second.
Marvel
Wait a
softball
second.
team.
Wait a second. They made you guys play sports because you wanted to, or
No. We wanted to as a
Sign-ups every Tuesday.
They I think
yeah, it's just like, all right, guys, ready for 2 innings. All right. So we can keep our health care.
Actually, you'd be surprised. There was some very athletic folks, men and women. The only thing that stunk was we usually played in up in the park, and you'd have to get on the subway with your gear to go to Central Park, and then you had to find a space between fields because you never got a regular field. They were booked.
That is like the last place I would ever imagine a group of illustrators and writers where they're like, all right, guys, softball, right? Like,
Yeah.
We're gonna play, but we're not gonna play on a field. We'll play in between.
Yeah, but there was enough room, and we had scheduled things with other publishers, sports broadcasters. Those guys were usually tough.
Now, was Marvel Productions always the best at softball?
We had a really good rivalry with DC.
Go figure. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure, right? We had some very memorable games against High Times Magazine. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
DC is just like always.
Memorable.
DC is always just resting on the neck of Batman so much. It's Batman or nothing. I mean, that was okay. So Superman's storyline.
Kevin, let's cut into the movie realm. Let's do it.
Get right into it. Okay, so Superman's storyline always going to be the same. Always, it kind of ran. It already ran out of steam when Richard Pryor's there for no reason, right? When you're like, is that Richard Pryor? And you're like, yeah,
he's
here. And you're like, wow.
I thought he was like Parasite in disguise. Wasn't that how they played that out?
Yeah, they kind of they left it open. They left it openly interpretable, and that's like so the Christopher Nolan Batmans were.
Wait. Can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure,
Sparky, did you ever draw the map, the maze?
No.
All right, Sparky. We give you one project. We give you. And here I am scolding the Sparky.
Darren, you are obviously very intimidating to Sparky. He is normally our illustrator throughout the time. He is
our graphic designer, illustrator, artist.
He does art on the spot.
He is the provocateur of
Give
the
him hell,
illustration.
Sparky. I'm taking the night off. I'm just bullshitting.
I I was actually working on my new character design to work on a pitch later on in the show.
I'm ready for it now, Sparky.
We
Let's see
are
what you
ready
got.
for
Before
it.
we
Bring
jump
out the
into
gravy.
Batman,
We're starving.
Jesus Christ, if we have to have another Batman conversation with another character about how shitty Batman is.
No.
here we go.
Not about how shitty Batman is. I'm just Joel Osteen. No, Joel Osteen is a scumbag too. Well, who am I thinking of? Joel Schumacher.
Joel Schumacher.
Schumacher Batmans, where they're like, "Hey, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, a very talented bodybuilder. Who should we have him play? Not Bane. No. Why would we want him to play the bodybuilder Bane? No, let's have him play Mr. Freeze, the meek man who lost his wife to a disease, who was a great storyline. But no, let's give Arnold
Fantastic
Schwarzenegger
storyline. Yeah.
nothing but one-liners in this movie. What kind of scumbag storyboard? You know, if you
And
want,
by
you
the
should-
way, a tall, slender man.
listen, dude, he should be forced to watch his own movie before putting it out there, and then strapped to a lie detector and said, "Hey, is this good? Would you watch this the second time?" And if the answer is no, you get to put a bullet through his head. You know, no. Listen,
Now, see,
dude.
I got excited. I thought somewhere there was a movie where Batman kicked the crap out of Joel Osteen.
Joel Osteen should be
That'd be great.
Joel
That
Osteen should be a
got
new.
my
You know, just
money.
put him in there. What is he gonna do? Sue
No,
you?
he would be the ultimate Batman character.
Batman character. You know, he's
The
He's-
antithesis of the of
he's
the
the-
Batman.
you know what they should do? They should have Joel Osteen, and his puppet should be a miniature Jesus Christ, and he should be like, "I talked to Jesus." And
Joel
then fucking,
Osteen with,
you know,
a,
little
with a cross transformer.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
comes out of
apparently
his chest
people
like
willingly
Starscream.
gave him money in a basket. Willingly gave. Yeah, he robs a bank, but he puts out a donation basket. Put in the basket. Put in the fucking basket.
It puts the money in the basket, or it gets the Jesus hose again.
Yeah, like so. Listen, they've been riding on the code. The only time Batman in my lifetime, thank God, has been done correctly was, and it hit big time stride. The second of the of the third Nolan Batman's was you had Heath Ledger rolling in there, and Dark Knight Rises. It was done correctly to the point where Heath Ledger prepared for the role by just banging both the Olsen twins and doing a lot of heroin. And you're like, really? That sounds like a joke, Mr. Ledger. And then he wouldn't come out of character. And you're like, oh, fuck, this guy's getting an Oscar. You know?
True.
So but the difference with Marvel is Iron Man's movie, not Edward Norton's Hulk, because that's who they originally thought they could build this empire off of, the guy whose peak was Fight Club. And then rode off of De Niro's roles, and needed some star power to help him out along the way. But Fight Club was a masterpiece in its own. Can't take that away from him at all.
You're ranting, sir. Keep going.
But the thing that came that Iron Man had is it had the kind of Christopher Nolan feel to it at the beginning, where you have the billionaire. Now he's captured by terrorists. And, he finds his own way out with his own mind and invention and stuff. Of course, they gave him a foreign friend, because why not? Who also speaks just enough English, like a couple cogs in the plot just to get the story along. So you had Iron Man 1, which was passable as a good movie compared to what was before. And what his competition was obviously in the box office at the time. And Iron Man 2, which was practically the same movie. Just like they're like, let's just fucking throw it out there again. And it was a money-making idea. And then, obviously you have what you have today with Marvel, where they have She-Hulk. And Tony always asks a great question when it comes to She-Hulk. It's my favorite question that Tony asks people that defend
tread
She-Hulk.
carefully on this, because Darren did draw the Hulk for a while.
Okay, great. No, this is always my favorite question when people defend the TV series She-Hulk. And you have a great debate set up for them, and you say, okay, man, I get all your points of why you like She-Hulk, and I'm telling you why the TV series isn't really working for me. And Tony always asks them, Darren, he always says, what's her name? She-Hulk. what
Oh,
is
it's cool.
what is her first and last name in the show? And every time, not even joking, every time they have no fucking clue.
They're like,
they skip over.
Hmm.
They're like, well, what does it matter? And Tony's like, exactly. They have zero character development with this whole thing. It's handled like a child would handle a grenade. You know it's going to be a disaster because it's a kid and there's a grenade. Pin's going to come out eventually. It's going to blow up in their faces. And you can't use the excuse, but you can't just use the excuse like, well, that's what it was meant to do. What the fuck kind of excuse is that? That's what it was meant to do. Oh, but She-Hulk was meant as a comedy. Okay. That's cool for a comic book if you're portraying it that way. But it's kind of an insult to writing for female characters. If you're not able to write a female character, you got to get some more female artists in there. Darren, have you seen an influx
it's finally the question. Here it is.
in your field right there? Have you seen an influx in female artists or a more diverse amount of people coming up in the field of illustration for comic books than there was from when you were coming up?
Well, with as far as the She-Hulk show, I liked it. I mean, I drew an issue of it. I did a fill-in because they were in a jam. That was fun. Michael Urey wrote it. Well, yeah, I think, you know, in a lot of ways, it's not just the big two anymore. I think a lot of the people who didn't like the She-Hulk show were mad that they turned Hulk into a girl.
I just didn't like it because it didn't work as a show, really. You know, I just didn't.
Yeah. I liked it. The ending, it was almost like you went through, you know, you broke that panel, you went through the fourth wall, and then you did it a couple more times. It was almost, I would have to watch it again. I just watched it the one time. I thought it was great. You know, I would like to watch. I didn't like how they handled, spoiler alert, I didn't like how they handled the Wrecking Crew, because that was always a favorite villain team of mine.
Love the Wrecking Crew. Love them.
You know, yeah, and they were, just throwaway dopes, and it's like, nah, you wasted an opportunity to do something really cool with them and like an Avengers.
So here's my cool follow-up question, Darren.
I'll get back to your question as far as like, the talent. I think it's a great time to be in the business. I mean, I don't work for the big two anymore. I do some stuff for smaller publishers on occasion. I work with all types of different people. Comics should be boring if it was just what we used to do back in the 70s, 80s, and and for people who get excited, you know what? For my thing is, be a fan, be an ambassador, embrace it. If you don't like something, don't waste your time, your life shitting all over it. I understand that there's people that, they get following and they get attention by
crapping on everything. Of course.
You got those dodo birds out there that just because it has a stamp on it of anything, they'll just like it for that reason. So the disingenuousness of people just liking something just to like it is more or less what when we're talking about like a She-Hulk, or when somebody just doesn't can pick out what works and what doesn't work. And when will Marvel come out with a new when will they, you said and you hit something on the head right there, that we can't just keep doing the same thing that we've done since the 70s and the 80s, correct?
Right.
And I'm not sure when Marvel will come out with an actual new new superhero idea, because they've been meshing, they've been recycling and meshing and recycling for so long. I'm ready for something new, but Hollywood normally doesn't like to, it's owned by Disney now, so that's probably another big factor as well. Disney
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
He's frozen. Son of a bugger. I guess I know where he's going with this. As
Well,
far
for
as
me,
Disney is concerned,
the comics aren't
has Disney
necessarily
too much.
Yeah. And you know what? The comics aren't necessarily linked up with, I thought when Disney became the parent company that the comics and
my
the
stuff just
shows
froze,
and
yeah.
the movies would become even more synced up. What I meant by doing the same thing was telling the same stories with the same art styles. I know style is kind of a tricky term, but like I know when we were working there, like we were like, oh man, let's do some romance, let's do some westerns, let's do horror, let's do, because I don't know, let's shake it up, let's do different things. But especially in the 80s and 90s, man, it was pretty much all superheroes, and we would actually get a lot of letters saying, why don't you do other genres, but you vote with your money, and we didn't necessarily see that in sales. They might ask for something. Now, I'm not saying, I've heard people say, oh, well, the fans don't know what they want and we got to give them what we want. No, and you know what? And like these days when I hear some guys complain about diversity, well, Warner Brothers and Disney, they want everybody's money.
Yeah, they do.
So of course they're doing this, and but as far as new stuff, I don't, hey, it was nice back when I was more connected with the big companies and I was getting copies of everything. It was nice, not having to spend any money on comics.
Heck yeah.
But now when I do buy comics or get them, I got a really good library by me, and it ain't even new anymore, but like I really enjoyed Ms. Marvel. It had one of the best, it a little silly, but I always liked the student, like I pitched, I wanted to do a book called like Avenger in Training or Avenger School about that same kind of thing. And of course they ended up doing similar things. I'm not saying they took my idea. That's just one of those, of course that was going to happen. But
they'll run into it down the road on that idea. Now that wouldn't be a bad concept at all. And I don't know how much, because I was saying a lot of words and I didn't realize everybody was all frozen, so I apologize for that. I don't know where it ended or where it started. But yeah, the safe concept has always been continued through Disney. They want to make sure that they get their cash, and rightfully so. But you can always, how these comics and how these characters were started were from scratch and from nothing. So even from
a lot of, you're talking about mythology, you're talking about archetypes. Is there anything new under the sun?
A lot of borrowed archetypes, and of course the hero storytelling throughout time. You always have the same premise to a story, and the similarities do, and similarities will always exist. Hell, I always try to compare. Remember the in England at one time, right? They had swords and they had a bow and arrow, right? So then they end up going across the area and they bump into America, and they realize that somebody else is shooting at them with bow and arrows, and they're like, wait a fucking, hold on. I thought we only had these. So yeah, as much as an idea could be and feel as original as possible, and you can say, how I have the best of this, and and you're like, well, I also have this. Well, it's different to a degree, but it does evolve from somewhere. it's just you know, when you hear the Peter Parker and like, when great power comes great responsibility, and then they're like Spider-Verse, and they keep throwing these things at people. I'm just wondering how long can it continue? Like,
Right.
that's what I always appreciated about Rocco's Modern Life, right? The originality of the idea, because no one had ever seen a short kangaroo in a cool little shirt, and then the his life is pretty simple.
His bovine brother.
Yeah.
Raised
Yeah,
by
like-
wolves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, and again, it was original. Well, hell, like, you know, it's kind of phenomenal that I didn't work on it, but Beavis and Butthead, you know, Marvel ended up running with that, and it was a
Yeah,
huge
just
hit.
too.
Yeah.
Oh
And I
yeah.
was so happy for my, you know, I would watch this show and it was like, this is kind of too dopey for me, but I was so happy for my buddies who worked on the strip the comic, because they got some nice checks out of that deal, you know.
You gotta stretch those checks out too.
Originality, I mean, I don't know. Get more stuff out there, different types of stuff. You know, I wish I had my go-to list here as far as newer stuff that I really get a kick out of. But you know what? The guys that, you know, I belong to some groups on Facebook that are like old guys who love comics. You know, yeah, I'm 60. And they're like, oh, they don't make them like that. It's like, go buy Walt Simonson's Ragnarok.
Mhm.
You will love it. You know, they're out there. Quit bitching and find them. Or
There's a lot of cool, really cool indie artists.
Yeah, the graphic artists are out there. Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
talked about it. We talked about this a little bit earlier, Darren, as well.
Mhm.
Like some great artists like Silverback, you know,
Yep.
who phenomenal artists, and you know, and unfortunately, like, not to say that they're pandering for commissions, but like, you know, that's where you're making your bread and butter too. You're making a lot of bread and
Mhm.
butter on commissions. You're trying to sell your art out on social media.
Yeah.
But where for you has it changed from bullpen work to not necessarily comic book or comic cover artists? Because now there's such a thing as a comic cover artist, but not
Right.
necessarily working on the comic.
Right.
So you have your regular scratch, you know, like a person who's scratching stuff on the papers, you know, doing blank
Mhm.
scripts, doing stuff like that. You have or not even comic book artist, your comic book artist that's doing AI inspired graphic design stuff on a computer,
Right.
which is also cool. Not necessarily AI helped. I'm just saying that it's all done on.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then there's the person who, you know, are doing covers as far as artistry is concerned. So people who are doing oil paintings, watercolors,
Mhm.
amazing visual artists as
Yeah,
far
like
as like
Magic the Gathering cards. I mean,
beautiful,
you
like
know,
absolutely
that's a
beautiful.
whole industry. You know, I
And
used to do a lot of. I still do a lot of sketch cards, you know, that go into the card packs.
Oh, cool.
So
and I go on
when
e-
has that changed for you? Is what I guess what I'm trying to
Okay,
say.
as far as changes for me, I still have to draw this stuff by hand.
Okay.
It's what I enjoy. It's part of my therapy. I got more issues than Action Comics, baby. I need my therapy. I need to get a pencil and a pen. So that's you know, my own personal choice. You know, we do all right. I'm not worried about being on a Batman book and making that kind of money, you know. But how would it's kind of all right. So I'm not working on a regular book. I commissions. Unfortunately, with comics, you know, I was never a name, a big name, whatever, however you want to, you know, marquee guy. And If I was to connect with a Marvel editor these days and get a project, my page rate for Marvel / DC would be less than it was back in 99, 2000 when I got out of Marvel.
Yeah.
So just about everybody's taking a hit. The new people coming in, I remember, I was teaching at the Kubert School like 3 years ago, and I was paying attention to starting rates, and I'm like, wow. And some of these smaller publishers, it's not like they're trying to get over on anybody or be evil or, I'm going to buy a castle. They're a small business, so they're like, would you, my students and younger people coming in, could you pencil and ink and letter this for $30 a page? And I'm like, Jesus, that's insane. I still take on work. There's a company called Wave Blue World. I always screw that up. Sorry, but they do some really great stories about positive futuristic science fiction. This is probably the shittiest plug ever for a book, but and it's small company. This guy, I met him at the Kubert School. He was a student, and I'm like, yeah, I'll draw that story, and if I like something, I do it. I guess that's how things have changed. Commissions, I can make a lot more money doing commissions for a relatively small amount of fans than doing comic book work.
So Darren, the impact that comics done correctly, and a lot of them are done really great, right? And I got 2 examples that comics have been able to nail down these characters more than any movie has ever been able to. And I mean, these 2 characters I'm about to name have been failed in every movie and adaptation, in my opinion, in comparison to what the comics have actually been able to create for them. And the 2 characters are Venom and the Punisher. Both of those characters in the comics have jumped off the page and leapt into the imagination of people more than any movie adaptation or any TV series has ever tried to do justice. By the way, I don't know why John Travolta was in a Punisher movie. I don't do casting, but he was there. I swear to you, he was there. And you're like, and it felt so forced where you're like, oh, so all of his family went to the same island? Like what? Just drop a bomb and say that he fucking. I don't know, man.
Now, both those characters, they're kind of part of an interesting part of, I don't know, comic book history. Both villains. Punisher originally ran around with these science fiction-y looking weapons, and he wasn't necessarily a murderer. Of course, back in those days, even if a character was out to murder people, everybody lucked out. He didn't actually murder anybody, And Venom, straight up monster. It was kind of, but with popularity, the business of it, the bean counters, well, we got to put them in their own books. And, you got to have some, I don't know, it's not, we used to say anti-heroes in the 70s, like with Clint Eastwood and the more hard-edged characters. And
Dirty Harry, let's just shoot it.
Yeah, and then of course it just gets more and more interesting as time goes on. The movies, I like Bernthal, is that the guy's name who played Frank in the shows?
Yep.
You know, that was pretty damn cool.
That was passable. I could totally agree with you on that. It's just,
I mean, it's
when-
just opinion, but I thought.
yeah,
it was
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
When you want to when you're reading the comic, right, and they're showing the murders, like it's gruesome. You know, if you get
Mhm.
if you get your, and then you got the Marvel, they Disney Marvel, they got Disneyed. We got that saying. they where they just PG-13 some ideas up, and I just you could get Spider-Man right a million times over. That's why it's a universal character to play. You can get Batman wrong but right in the same area too. There's probably, popular opinion, there's probably been only like 2 or 3, that people will claim to be the real Batman or whatever. But they're universally adaptable characters. But to be able to and now the Venom to be able to be Venom, like you got to nail it like down. And they're missing the origin story. It was a meteorite that had a parasite attached to the meteorite. Last I checked, right? Stop me if I'm wrong, Tony, because sometimes I'm not always right. So
Well, is that
Keep
the
going, I'll let you
movie?
know when you're wrong.
Because the comic was the suit.
the suit. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So the one I've read before, a meteorite comes down. It's got a parasite attached to it, and then bam, it's there. And then dude's like, "Hey, I also work for the paper, and here's Peter Parker. Let me get really close." So when they told me not to, and he does, and he's like, "Oh, I have a little bit of this black liquid on me. No biggie. Shouldn't be a problem at all." And then gets home, and he's like,
Movie The Blob. I
basically
shouldn't have gotten this
it's a
close.
much more it's an agile, it's the Blob doing body snatchers, and then
Pretty
and then
much.
you basically have the Venom character. Yeah, so let's just face it, Darren, nothing has been originally written since the Twilight Zone. Okay, they have just picked apart that whole entire show, and they're like, well, we're good for another 200 years here, Hollywood.
Mhm. Well, for me, well, we used to joke like in the 90s, if a title wasn't doing good, you put the Punisher in as a guest star, that would bump up sales.
Boom, boom, boom.
Seriously,
Venom, if it was, and then you get like Venom, Ghost Rider, and Punisher in there, and Wolverine, and then you bought yourself at least another month or two.
Yeah, you already have Midnight Suns in there.
But with Punisher, and yeah, I'm a fan along with being an old pro or whatever. With Punisher, it was like, I know that, you continue with these things and new things come to the stories and the characters, but you have to keep a certain status quo. Like, let's say like 10 years ago, the Punisher's already, whether they deserved it or not, he's already murdered like 38,000 people.
Mowing
But if
people
he
down.
teams up, but Spider-Man's next to him going, "Now, Frank, don't shoot anybody while we're teaming up. After we get done with this mission, who knows what you're gonna do? I'm gonna pretend I don't have that responsibility."
The Punisher goes to the seamstress.
Yeah,
15 years after his family's mowed down, right?
Yeah, and
so
it's like,
he's like, "I'm gonna need a full body suit, big skull right here, sir. What do you need this for?" 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Oh boy, 15 years, dude.
But
You
you
need
know what,
therapy.
Popularity and sales, they walk, and sometimes the logic of these things, not even the logic, like what has been established, I mean, with Venom, as soon as he started eating brains, you get your buddy Dr. Strange to zap him into like the donut dimension or something and just leave him out there for good. But we can't do that because we got to sell Venom and Punisher comics. It's a weird thing,
I do have one story to bring up that Tony's gonna hate me for, but Tony, if
Oh
you
God,
want,
can we wrap this up at any point in time?
this is the wrap up. This is the one wrap up
All
story.
right,
real
wrap
quick.
it up. Go.
Fun.
This was the big story.
Wait, wait,
of the
wait, wait.
week.
Before you even get into that, hold on.
Sure.
Sparky, you have something on the big board. What is
There
it?
you go.
A new character design for my new comic book.
Oh my God! Now, Darren, use it. This is gold. You're gonna want to use it.
Are you telling me to just steal his stuff
Yes.
right
It
off
is
of this
quite okay.
podcast?
It is our gift to you. Lay Sparky in the colors of justice.
Not
I
the
can't
pink
make
one.
out what the last guy's saying.
Not
Oh,
the pink one.
one.
What is it? What is that? The big board on the bottom there?
Yes.
Not the pink one.
Oh wow.
Not the
now-
pink one.
Now, Darren, I know you're not used to artwork to that degree on display.
You know
So
what? The love, the intensity and the love.
Yeah.
Sparky, I'm with you, man.
there's a
Kudos to you,
lot of
fine sir.
there's a lot of emotions being portrayed in the picture, Sparky. If you want to put it up real quick, and we can go through the play by play.
Yeah, we'll pick this apart.
As you could tell, the Lay Sparky character, I'm guessing, is all the way on the left, even though there's no captions. There's only one piece of dialogue, as if not the pink one. Now, the guy could be colorblind, but he might also know that pink is a similarity to him to be painted as a lesser of a man sort of thing. While the big board is on display onto some victim down there. Sparky, am I off on any of these or no?
Well, pretty good so far.
Pretty good so far. There's
Now,
an
Sparky,
intensity.
your guy in the middle, what's he holding or what's that?
That
The
is
big
the
board
big
in its
board,
depth.
Darren. The big board.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And if you were, and it's written down there. It says big board while in a square shape.
Now I got you.
Just for context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sparky used to work for DC because it needs to all be written in front of people.
There
You know.
go.
Yeah.
Like in that's
Well, there's no
He
blood
needed
or
a storyboard
nudity, so
for
we
his
could
storyboard.
probably go with an all ages imprint. You know,
you know how you get so DC started off. They said we'll call him Good Man, and then Great Man, and then they're like, let's call him Superman and call it a night, guys. We got some cocaine and hookers to get to. All right.
get those two kids out of here, that Schuster and Simon, and we'll have a party. Yep.
Definitely.
Mm.
Is that your story, Sparky? Or Kevin, is that what you got?
That was Sparky's big board story, but the bigger story today, if you've heard the big news there, Darren, we have Pamela Anderson claiming that Tim Allen flashed his genitals at her home on Home Improvement set. Did you hear about this story yet, Darren, or not?
I missed it. Mm.
Now, Pamela Anderson alleged that Tim Allen flashed his genitals at her while the actors were on the set of Home Improvement in 1991, according to an excerpt of actress' upcoming memoir. So Pamela Anderson put this in her memoir. And you know what? I'm calling bullshit on this because we all know that if Tim Allen shows you his genitals, you are now Santa Claus.
Well, you know, there is
Yeah.
that Santa connection.
It's the Santa Claus. It's the claws. You
Angry
look at the
Claus,
genitals,
yeah.
you now have to deliver gifts for
I want some kind of credit for not making a tool time joke.
man.
Oh wait, I just made a
there's
tool
so
time
many
joke. Never mind.
you gotta say it's,
I don't
No,
think so.
we
see,
need more power.
That's one of the benefits of just hiding in my studio and drawing weird shit and writing stories. I'm completely out of sync with
That workplace sexual harassment
Pam
was presented to you by
Anderson
Benford Tools.
Darren, if people were going to get in touch with you for commissions, sir, if they wanted to get in touch with you just to even find out how to get into the industry, what to do, have any questions, how do they find you? Where do they find you? What do you have coming up soon?
Okay. Probably the best way to get in touch with me, Facebook. I don't have a site up and running right now. But if you reach out to me on Facebook, that's fine. What I'm working on is we kind of started talking about almost like a funny pages project that I really can't talk
Mum is
about
the
just
word.
yet.
Mum is the word.
I've been working on it since 1958, I think, but I'm still working on my miniseries / graphic novel called Jersey Devil versus Bigfoot. I'm in the mode of like the old Universal monster movies, maybe a little wilder than that. And yeah, I'm always doing commissions. I don't always draw just Marvel stuff.
Hey, look at that. That looks really cool, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Oh, that's freaking awesome. Yeah.
That was, they celebrate Batman Day in September.
Yep.
That was for Bat Giggles.
By the way,
I'm almost out of the old Nickelodeon pages, but I still bring Rocco and Ren and Stimpy to the shows. And as a matter of fact, guys, Sunday I want to throw in a plug. The Garden State Comic Fest. There you go. There's one from the Scranton Con.
Yep.
But Saturday and Sunday is going to be Winterfest. And that's a Garden State Comic Fest show. I'm going to be there on Sunday. He booked up so quick that I could only get one day's table, but their shows are always fantastic. And coming up is going to be HersheyCon, of course, Hershey, Pennsylvania. And
which is pretty decent as well, right?
What's that?
I said that's pretty big as well for HersheyCon.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's become a must go to. And that's my friends Joe and Tracy. They have a really nice shop in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, called Isle of Comics. Give them a plug. They put on great shows.
Go to isleofcomics.com to go to Isle of Comics as well.
I feel like such a dope. I don't have my site up, but if you reach out to me on Facebook,
and I think the major thing is just to see you in public. Like, don't be afraid to talk to somebody.
yeah,
You are a very approachable person. You're very nice. I mean, you're a giant. You are literally a giant. You can't miss you. You are a large
Wait,
man.
how tall are you, Darren? How tall are you?
I'm 6'4". So
Easy. Yeah, you can't miss a 6'4" guy. You can miss
sometimes-
like
and
a
I
6-footer
usually-
here and
this
there.
is kind of my uniform. Well, you'll get a kick out of this. I was at the pharmacy a while back, and there was this young mom and her little toddler, and I got my stuff. I'm heading down the aisle, but I am conscious of, I'm not exactly a small human looking thing. And this little girl looks up and goes, "Mommy, what is that?" And this poor woman, she's like looking at me like, "Oh my God, is he gonna kill us?" But it's like, and I just started laughing. I said, I get it, I said, and then I ate her.
Excellent.
There you go.
Excellent.
Well, that's
excellent
what you
ending
do
to the
with
story.
children. That has to you have to teach them a lesson that people that are at the ages 60 years old, and
Children are
6'4"
finger foods.
Yeah, thanks for holding up that poster. That was fairly recent. And guys, as far as if you want to reach out to me, my Gmail is auckdarren@gmail.
One of my favorite things that you've done is your fat comic book characters.
Oh, thanks.
And that was
Yeah.
always my favorite. Actually, several years ago, I ran into you at Scranton Comic Con again, and you were nice enough to give me there were these small little place cards.
Yeah.
With different fat comic book characters on them, and
Yeah.
they're phenomenal. I have them. I
Thank
have them
you.
in my personal library.
Yeah, that was I dubbed that one Heavy Heroes.
Yes.
And I did some trading cards and some mini comics with sketches on the back. And You know, it's funny because like even then we'd kind of gotten into this atmosphere, like people are a little too hyper about everything. You know, I do acknowledge that. And but like I don't draw them like sucking down pizza or stuck to the bowl or anything. You know, their challenge with them is to draw like these established Marvel, DC, whatever characters, and they're round, but they're still doing heroic stuff, you know. And they
true.
went, yeah, you know.
I gotta check that out.
Oh,
I'll
another
have to
thing.
I'll have to dig it out of my inventory and show you one day, Kevin. It's
Okay.
phenomenal.
Yeah, guys, if you're
That's
interested,
like your
try to-
everyday superhero right there. That should be portrayed like there's like that's a $1 trillion idea right there because there's more fat people than water. You know,
Well,
like
you know what? An old strip. Look up Herbie, and he was also known as a superhero called the Fat Fury, and it's pretty good satire. And I mean, come on, if Clark Kent was 500 pounds, it wouldn't matter. He'd still have his powers.
Well, he'd be able to lift himself hypothetically, right? Because
There you
he's
go.
yeah, he can he's as strong as Superman, so he should be larger.
There you go.
There he is. Whoa.
It's a
Yo.
funny strip. Funny strip. But yeah, guys, if you want to, you know, if you Google me, you'll see a whole range of stuff. You know, and I always tell people if you're interested in talking to me about a commission, you know, there is no like set thing. I do have a price list I'll send you, but you know what? Don't tell anybody. If I like your idea, I'm probably going to give you a hell of a break on it because that's the way I doodle, baby.
Darren, you seem like such a very nice, and you are a very nice, genuine person. Like, I'm sure if a woman came up to you and says, "Could you draw me a picture for my dying child? He's dying. He's in the cancer ward right now." It's not like you would say $40.
$50 for a head, $100 for a body.
$40 to draw. No, $40 for that
$200.
sentence. You spoke to me without an appointment. I'm suing you now.
This might be a badly timed plug, but a friend of mine does an online show called Cooking with Stupid, and he gets myself and a lot of creators, some big names. We tend to give him artwork and different things from our collection, and it goes toward Heroes Initiative and a bunch of different cancer charities. So yeah, you know what? I'm trying to make up for the sins of my first 50
Previous
years.
discretions.
So I'm actually doing nice stuff like that. But yeah, that's Cooking with Stupid. He's hilarious. But yeah, you guys got any questions?
I have one more to end the show.
Okay.
One more to end the show.
I wasn't even sure how long the show was going to go, so
Well, we usually shoot for an hour. It's a little over an hour right now.
that's fine. I'm having fun.
If you had to resurrect one person from the dead, who would it be, sir?
That is
Oh
an
my-
amazing question. Yeah.
Wow.
You had wait, Tony. Do they come back the same, or is it Pet Cemetery?
Pet Cemetery.
Oh shit! All right,
Oh,
so they
so
come
there's
back,
like-
but they're all messed up. They're like, "Whoa!"
If I bring back Stan
Grandma, get off
Lee,
of
he's
me.
going to try to kill me. Is that what you're telling me? Well, I'm not going to that Pet Cemetery.
No.
How's
No.
that?
Let's,
You know how the
Larry, let's
Micmac
not go
tribe
Pet
gets,
Cemetery
right?
style. You've had some amazing mentors in your life. You met some great people. You've had some phenomenal interactions with some great artists, writers, directors, printers, inkers, people that have done some amazing things in your life. One person you need to bring back. Who is it?
Oh man, that's tough.
This is why we end our show on a clandestine
You know what?
question.
what comes to mind, and you know, without the whole demonic aspect of the Pet Cemetery, I would love to hang out with Joe Kubert again.
Yeah.
Flo Steinberg, who
Not even a Jack Kirby guy?
You know what? I met Jack Kirby very briefly. I got his autograph at like the Marvel Con in '76. But even as I was developing my own stuff, it was like I was afraid to go talk to him.
I've
One
heard
of my
there's good and bad
regrets-
stories about him though. Like he was very much a recluse, you know, very close to his family, very, very family
Yeah, but
orientated.
you know what? There's also stories where like some of those younger creators in the '70s, he would have them come over and they would have meals. And Jack, you know, Jack was very friendly. I just, back then I was dumb because I thought, oh, well, you know, am I going to make a fool of myself? And then I learned later on that he was very approachable, very cool.
Yeah.
What was funny is with John Buscema, actually, he had a art workshop back in the '70s. You'd go into the city on Saturday, and him, sometimes Stan was there at the classes, and Don Heck, another old Marvel pro. And so one of those few times John Buscema came up to the Marvel offices for a meeting. And I knew he wouldn't remember me. I mean, I was like 14, you know. So I go up to him and I had to geek out on him. I said, John, I go, you are, and he is. I go, you are my, you know, you're my idol as far as the artwork goes. And I said, you know, you're the reason I got into this business.
Yeah.
And John was a big gruff guy. He goes, don't blame me, kid. I think I tell that one constantly, but it was, and then he chuckled, and you know,
It's
I was
true.
lucky.
It's a
I was
cutthroat
lucky enough to
business.
have a
It's hard.
couple meals with him. He was larger than life, you know.
That's cool.
But as far as that question, yeah, Joe would be great to see again. Flo Steinberg, she was a good friend. She was working as a proofreader when we were pretty much in the bullpen. We were lucky to get to know Flo. Oh man.
How do you get a
Raquel
job as
Welch?
a
I don't
proofreader
know.
for a comic book? Like
What's that?
that's a great job, proofreader for a comic book.
Yeah, yeah. And it, you know, even professional, you know, you could have the best writers, the tightest letterers. You know, you probably read in some fan press that some writers are notorious for maybe not spelling so well. But yeah, you got to have a proofreader, you know. She was always telling us to shut up so she could concentrate on her work. It was funny.
I guess I need to say one. Well, there's maybe one more question. Is
Oh,
there an
cool.
artist that has come out recently in the past 5 to 10 years that you said, wow, they have amazing artistry? I'm glad that they're getting covers. I'm glad that they're getting their popularity. Has there anyone in particular, even like Gabrielle Doado,
Yeah.
you know, who is an amazing artist as far as comic books and covers, and you know, they've made a career out of cover artistry, which is crazy. Like, what is there anyone that comes to mind for you?
Oh, sorry. I know I got.
By the way, you could
maker.
still say Sparky. You know, just
Sparky.
throwing it out there.
Mhm.
You could
You
make his
know
day,
what?
right?
I would say like, who was it? Chris Samney that was on Daredevil a while back with Mark Waid. If you're not familiar with his work, it kind of reminds me of like Alex Toth, you know, like
Okay.
economy of line, placement of blacks. Chris Samney, I believe it's Samnee. He does amazing stuff. Oh man, I'm cheating. I'm looking at my list. I mean, Sean Phillips, I mean, you still got Simon Bisley doing amazing things. Mike Perkins, Russ Braun, of course, Frank Cho. He's one of them.
Yeah.
Kind of like we were talking about students, and sometimes you see students come in and they're just brilliant. And, you know, there was a couple of them, once I got to know them, I'd be like, well, you know, you're doing really good work, but I got some bad news for you. I'm going to break your fucking arm because you're a threat. You're going to take food out of my mouth. Yeah. But, and
Are you normally sitting on top of them when telling them that, or you know?
True.
Oh, and another upcoming project I have is I'm going to have shirts done that say, "This is my happy face." Maybe that'll make people relax when I come bigfooting into the building, you know.
That's true. You are the epiphany of the caveman.
Yep.
The comic caveman.
Yeah.
Sparky, what do you got to end the show, brother? Hurry. Chop chop. Deadlines, buddy. Hey, Pam, want to see under my coat? Help me, Lay Spark. Where is the target?
Now, if you're paying attention to the earlier thing, that middle guy right there is Tim Allen. To all the way to the left would be, to all the way to the left is Tim Allen. Right in the middle with the red dress on would be Pamela Anderson. And Lay Sparky is there for the save.
Now, see, I want to compliment you on your storytelling there, Sparky. It read fine, you know, even with Kevin's help. It makes me wonder, though, with less Sparky, are we looking at, you know, French dialogue? You know, that's a little tougher if you're not comfortable with the language, you know.
It's okay, Sparky. It's all right.
Well, the reason that whenever he does talk, Zoom just automatically puts down closed captioning for him. So it's like,
Guys, we're going to end this show. Darren, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule as
That was
well.
fun.
We'd love to have you back at another time.
Okay.
yeah, seriously, if
Yeah,
you can
let's
come
do
back,
it.
man, that'd be great. You know,
Yeah.
we never ask anybody back. Like seriously, it's
Oh,
normally,
thank you.
normally
You've
we
been
do
a
these
delight,
kind of
sir.
things, and
You've
it's
been a
like,
delight.
whoa. You know,
Oh,
normally
I'll have my answer list in front of me quicker next time. you know.
Perfect. Perfect.
But, and guys, you know, there's a lot of different types of comics. Next time I'll be more prepared. I got some graphic novels that really blew me away. There's so much good talent out there. Be a fan, be an ambassador. Don't be a muckraker. How's that?
That's a beautiful thing.
Guys, thanks.
Thank you, Darren. Guys, we are the Podguyz podcast. Look for us on all your favorite social medias and streaming services. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah,
We don't have to
blah,
go into
blah.
the list. We don't have to go into the list.
There you
Sparky,
go.
I want
Send all your
that
hate
first
mail to the
issue on my desk next week.
podguyz@gmail.com. I'm sorry, what was that, Darren?
I said, Sparky, I want that first issue on my desk next week.
Perfect.
All right,
We're the
guys, that was
Podguyz
fun.
podcast. Have a great night, guys. I'm Tony Kaz.
Kevin Neary.
Of course, Lay Spark A down in the corner. Make sure you go to merchbooth.com/pages/the Podguyz, the hashtag or no space minus.
You go to merchbooth.com, you look
Go to
up
merchbooth.com.
podcasts. It's Podguyz podcast on merchbooth.com. Buy some t-shirts, buy some hoodies. If we had keychains, we'd throw that on there and sell them to you as well. But, you know, whatever you can afford and whatever you can't afford. Don't know what to spend that credit card money on? Just get yourself a t-shirt from merchbooth.com, specifically the Podguyz podcast t-shirt from merchbooth.com.
Guys, have a great night. Make sure you share.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.